All right. How is everybody today? Sunday, full moon. Full moon tomorrow for most of us, right in between Gemini and Cancer. Conjunct the Mars retrograde, which is going to be interesting, seeing as how we are at almost the halfway point of this retrograde with Mars. And it just so happens that we have a full moon conjuncted right in the middle here, because full moons are about doing a status check. They are about getting some insights, getting some awareness, and I think that's what will happen. I think that's probably what is happening. Let me know in the comments section in the chat if you have got any insights as of maybe today, or starting to maybe think you will going into tomorrow about the Mars retrograde. Mars retrograde is fundamentally about rethinking who we are, rethinking what we want, rethinking how we put our energy, how do we approach things, how is our proactive side, how is our assertive side, right? These kinds of things. And I think there's going to be collectively a lot of illumination around that fiery stuff that we can be reflecting on. So that's again tomorrow, full moon, heightened energy of the lunar month, status check time. But checking in with you all, great to see you all here as usual. Aqua Dragon, thank you so much, beautiful music. Thank you, Aqua Dragon. Yeah, this is on just the chill music. I think it's called chill music playlist on YouTube, but if you just type in chill music on YouTube, that's what I'm streaming. It is, I also agree, very good music. Daniela Dandis, thanks for joining. Hello everyone, with the kitty jumping out of the box. Solus, great to see you. Great for you to join. Margaret, of course, moderator. Thank you so much for joining us, Margaret, as always. Ancient Wisdom. Good afternoon to everyone here today. We have an interesting sky this week, starting with a full moon. Yeah, and it is very interesting. A lot of interesting events here. The full moon being conjunct Mars retrograde at the halfway point is very interesting. Being in between both Gemini and Cancer, also being very interesting, as this is really the bottom of the chart. So if you do cast the chart around the signs, you will see that the Cancer Gemini cusp is right on the bottom, and that really represents the fundamental and the foundation of life, we would say, because the zodiac wheel is the wheel of life, I believe, right? We go through the evolution of life, and the Gemini Cancer is what would be rounding the bottom with the circle of the wheel of life, and the bottom is the foundation, it's the pillar. And so you have Gemini, which is the mind, and you have Cancer, which is the body. You have Gemini, which is thought, you have Cancer, which is feeling. And yeah, we have other air signs and other water signs, other thought-based signs, and other emotion-based signs, but these are the fundamental signs, the first signs of the zodiac that deal with fundamental thought, fundamental emotion, or mind and body. And so a status check in terms of how are our thoughts? How is our thinking? How do we make sense of our reality? What is our perspective from the Gemini side? And then from the Cancer side, how are we feeling? How do we feel? Are we connected to what's intrinsically important to us? Maybe reflecting on the past a little bit. How is our caring and nurturing side? How is our own maternal side and caring for ourselves, but also others? These are, I think, great questions to ask here with the full moon. And Mars, again, being right in between these really marks the not only halfway point of the Mars retrograde, which again we're going to be likely getting some insights about how we assert ourselves, how we're proactive or not in life. But Mars being right in between both of these constellations. We have now Mars going back into Gemini. So lately with Mars retrograde, it's been really good to reflect on that more emotional body sort of connection to life. And again, the nurturing and caring side in terms of how we are expressing ourselves or asserting ourselves. But it is going to be going into Gemini into next week. And so that starts to add to how are we asserting ourselves with communication? How are we thinking about things in the sense of, our needs and, the fire of the mind and things like this. So that is really, really highlighted here. And the full moon does have a lot of aspects with it. Obviously, the conjunction up to Mars. Of course, Mars has been opposite Pluto, and so we have the opposition up to Pluto as part of this full moon as well. And this is the top of the chart, right? If you, again, look at the wheel of life, Sagittarius and Capricorn are at the top. So we've had the Sun in Sagittarius, Mercury in Sagittarius. So our perspective is really on expansion right now. I think it's a really good time to be open-minded, to be adventurous, to be more right brain, philosophical. And so this is going to help balance things out because we have the thoughts of Gemini that are now a good thing to do a status check with. But hopefully balancing that out with the open-mindedness, right? The practical with the abstract mind, or the left mind and the right mind. Left mind being more of the practical mind. And then Capricorn opposite Cancer reminds us that, pretty soon, especially once the sun goes into there, also next week, there's responsibilities. And so when we do talk about caring and nurturing and reflecting on the past, how can we bring in some of those responsibilities, some of that discipline, some of that persistence there? And anyways, Pluto's been entering Capricorn, so that's completely transforming the way we take on responsibility, completely transforming the way we build structures in our life. And that's also part of the full moon opposite Pluto. And trining Neptune, so it's nice to see that Neptune is actually in good harmony with this full moon. So that's the more receptive energies. I've actually already felt that. That's going exact today. Mars trining Neptune. As the week unfolds, we'll have in this case, the Sun sextile Neptune on Friday. But I'm feeling a little bit of the flow today. I don't know about you all. Obviously there's other things going on that are larger, but I'm feeling a little bit of that support to kind of flow with things a little bit more, having a little bit more acceptance with things. I don't know. What do you guys feel? How are you feeling this full moon? Let me know in the chat, and I'll share it with everybody. Melissa, great for you to join. Hey, everyone, says Melissa. Astral alumnus. We're seeing a lot of new names here. That's awesome. Great to see some new names. Hello, everyone. I'm feeling lucky. Great to see you back. Happy Sunday. Thank you very much. Happy Sunday to you, too. Aquarius Sky Clock, great to see you. Evening from Northumberland. Thank you so much, Aquarius Sky Clock. So Aquarius Sky Clock says Mars the old moon. Interesting what you mean by that. Was Mars considered the old moon? Or you mean that literally? So is that from maybe some past ancient belief or perspective? Or is there a belief that Mars was actually once a moon of the Earth? It's very interesting. Nova Cynthia Barker, great for you to join us. Thank you. Merry day to all. The Hippie Sage, greetings all. Great for you to be here. Thank you. Machine, great to see you. Hello. Ancient Wisdom, I was born with Mars retrograde. It's a mixed bag from my perception. Yeah. So the Mars retrograde probably would actually make it, and you can tell me if this is true or not, usually because you already have Mars retrograde in your chart, it can make it easier for you to assert yourself and, move things forward and set goals and having a little bit more clarity about who you are and expressing yourself, because it's a more familiar energy to you, Same with Mercury retrograde folks. Those that have Mercury retrograde in their chart tend to actually feel more forward movement when Mercury goes retrograde in the sky. So I'd be very curious if you resonate with that at the moment with Mars retrograde. Love, great for you to join us. Thank you so much. Hi, Athen, everyone. Manda here. Finally made it to this live chat. Glad you could make it, Manda. Thanks for joining. Violence is Life. Hey, Athen and everyone. Welcome, welcome. So ancient wisdom says this moon is transitioning my rising sign at the same degree of my birth chart. Very interesting. So the moon is transitioning, so transitioning over, so conjunct sounds like your rising sign at the same degree of my birth chart. Right, so I think you mean your ascendant, right? So the moon? Yeah, great. So means your Cancer rising, Gemini rising. That's great for all of us to know. Whenever the moon does go over our ascendant, that in many ways starts a new lunar cycle for us individually. We can very much think of it that way. So whatever your rising sign is, if you're a Taurus rising, a Gemini rising, whenever the moon gets to that sign, it's like you're starting a new chapter, because it means the moon's going into your first house for you personally and starting that new cycle for you. And it is quite crazy how accurate the moon is for the monthly cycles, whether it's the collective cycles, like for all the signs, or the personal cycles like this, when the moon is in certain houses in our birth chart. But every 29 days, or actually every 27 and a half days, the moon will go through the whole birth chart. But have that new moon every 29. Let's see here. So Solus, who's feeling the full moon energy, big growth. Yep. Definitely feeling the heightened energy of the month. But yeah, reflective though, right? With the Mars retrograde. Feels that way for me. Also the Cancer influence, you know, more on the personal, emotional for me as well. April Moore, howdy to all. Howdy, April. Thanks for joining. Meike Haldorf. Hey, you guys. I feel the full moon with a touch of curiosity, yet required patience. That's great to hear. Yeah, Gemini is the sign of curiosity. Great time to be curious. I would say that's a great thing to be doing a status check with. How is your, you know, I'm speaking to everyone. How is your curious side? How is your inquisitive side? Your interested side? These are really good things to develop right now. And the patience might be coming from that Capricorn that Pluto's activating and where the sun will be going into next week. What else is Saturn doing? Saturn was an aspect. Oh yeah, Saturn's going to go over Venus. So on Saturday, Venus will go over Saturn, and that's going to start a new chapter with our values. And so on Saturday, likely new beginnings with our values in the context of responsibility, patience, discipline, seeing the value of this stuff, and maybe even some new chapters with relationships as well. Current ones and possibly new ones, personal or professional, with this conjunction. So it happens every year, but it is a new chapter between these two planets. And this is actually in a contrast to what's going on earlier in the week, and perhaps now, because right now Venus is squaring Jupiter, and this is very different from Venus over Saturn. So Venus squared Jupiter, which goes exact to on Tuesday, actually gives us a bit of buoyancy here. So there can be, wanting to enjoy things, maybe feeling a bit indulgent, but good to moderate that, I think. Jupiter squares, we can go to over-under extremes with that buoyancy, with Venus, with enjoyments, with connections, even with relationship stuff, a little too much or not enough. So doing it constructively. I think constructive moderation when it comes to enjoyments, constructive relationship energy when it comes to those around Tuesday. But there could be some expansion there, some opportunities there, but very good when we ground them. So very different contrasting energy to the Venusian side of things. Again, Venus being values and relationships. Earlier in the week, more expansive, but also kind of like maybe too far, or then swinging the other way. And then the weekends, more responsible. So maybe a week of letting that indulgence run a little bit, letting that buoyancy or optimism run a little bit, and then maybe pulling it back over the weekend. So Margaret says, I feel it'll be a lighter full moon than we've had in the past months. Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I still feel like we're coming off of that eclipse stuff, but that was a very impactful last couple lunar cycles, few lunar cycles there. The energy we're in now, like the new moon we had 2 weeks ago, was very subtle. It's a much more subtle month astrologically than the previous months, and this being the halfway point of the month, certainly I would say lighter. But there's a lot of aspects with it, but just being conjunct the retrograde, being in Cancer and Gemini, which are more personal in nature, and the trine to Neptune giving us the subtlety of it, the receptivity available. I would certainly agree with that. Aquarius Sky Clock, Mars Old Moon from Steiner. Man, I got to do more reading of Steiner. I think that's the second time you've mentioned something about Steiner I didn't know. Well, great to know that. I'll have to check that out. Violence is Life, very interesting. I have Mercury retrograde. Yeah, see if you find that during the Mercury retrogrades in the sky, when they happen, actually do the opposite for you than what everyone else is experiencing. Or everyone else might be having that kind of reflective or kind of redoing kind of a thing, or things not flowing for them, like communications and stuff. You may find it actually does for you. So Danielle says, since I have my natal moon in Gemini, it's been an interesting period of retweaking the way I experience reality, in the sense of rethinking experiences that previously I would have put in a box. Very interesting. Gemini is the constellation of concepts, forming boxes, putting things into boxes, right? Forming those concepts. And a moon there means you're likely very intelligent, very curious, and again, wanting to form those concepts and put things into boxes, right? But with the full moon, I'm glad it's activating that, helping you become more aware of that side of yourself. And I would say a big part of that's Mars retrograde too. Mars now getting closer to your natal moon, helping you reflect on that stuff as well. Solus, great to see you. Yep, thanks for joining. Ancient Wisdom. Yes, I feel like it's definitely an expansion of thoughts and ideas, greater for communicating with positive feelings and inward and outward expression. Awesome. And that does sound like the Gemini Sagittarius energy. Well, the moon is in Gemini right now. Right, so we're not quite at the full moon yet. That's going to be tomorrow. So right now the moon's right around here in the middle of Gemini. So we'll definitely right now, like as in today, be feeling more of the Gemini side of it, the mental, cerebral, communicative. And then, as we start to get into, especially Tuesday after the full moon, probably more on the Cancer side, the personal, emotional, things like that. Aqua Dragon, I have Mars retrograde in my chart. Oh, another one. It's very rare to have Mars retrograde. That's the rarest of the retrogrades. I don't know if you know that, but Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year. Still kind of rare to have Mercury retrograde because he's only retrograde for 3 weeks out of those 3 times. So it is that 9 weeks out of the year. Venus goes retrograde for roughly a couple months, a little over a year, but let's just keep it even and say every year. And the outer planets, everything Jupiter and above, goes retrograde for like half of the year. So these are very common, having a Jupiter, Saturn, especially Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto retrograde is very common. But the least common is Mars. Well, the most common, the absolute least common would be the Sun or the Moon retrograde, but that's not possible. For the planets that do go retrograde, Mars is very rare. Retrograde once every roughly 2.5 years. So there's not too many individuals out there. I'm actually surprised there's at least 2 of you here joining us with Mars retrograde in your natal chart. But Mars does go retrograde for a longer period, but once every 2.5 years, it is the rarest. So let's see. Where are we here? Oh, lots of comments here. But to Aqua Dragon, to finish, I have Mars retrograde in my chart, and I'm all over the place trying to hold it together. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad I'm not the only one. But yeah, I've felt personally quite just scattered with the Mars retrograde. Not necessarily in a totally bad way or anything, but just not, just kind of rethinking and reflecting. So not quite sure I understand, and the question there. And I can't read the name either. But moving on here, the accidental alchemist. I lived my whole life thinking I was a Pisces and just recently learned I'm Aquarius ascendant and Aquarius rising. Moon in a Fucus. Maybe you mean Aquarius Sun and Aquarius rising and the Moon in a Fucus. But either way, I'm very happy that you discovered true sidereal. Yeah, you do mean, I think, the Sun in Aquarius because your Sun was in Pisces, and that's a big difference there. So a Pisces in mainstream would be that they would say that you are more receptive, and I'm sure you probably have some other planets in Pisces, as we tend to have Venus or Mercury very close to the Sun, and so there's always like a 50-50 chance that one of the other planets are there. Actually, it's a little bit more than 50-50. Yeah, that's a big difference, right, from a Pisces to an Aquarius. I still find all the systems, well, the tropical system accurate for the physical self. But I do find that the true sidereal is the more essential. So with your Sun in Aquarius, we would say that you view life through the lens of vision, through progressiveness, through unorthodoxy, challenging the status quo, and then that's likely how you express yourself. And a Moon in a Fucus is very cool. That's a very cool placement. Emotionally connected to that deeper healing world. The hippie sage, Scorpio Fucus rising, Virgo Moon, Aries Sun. Awesome. Solus, I have Mars in the 4th in Pisces, so it's really affecting my actions and emotions. I feel a lot of growth. Yeah, Mars in the 4th. Yeah, so that would be, so it's not, it's similar. It's similar to Cancer, right? 4th house and Cancer. But that is very much the fundamental of your chart, right? So the bottom of the chart is the 4th house, and that going through that reflection, especially, oh, I'm sorry, that's in your natal chart. I have Mars in the 4th. I see, right. So the Mars retrograde is really activating that. Yeah, so always good for you to reflect on the emotions, deeper world there of Pisces. But the retrograde right now will certainly call you to reflect on that. Daniela Dandis, for Accidental Alchemist, high 5. Okay, so I think that's a personal comment there. A frequency 528. Great for you to join us. Great to see you. Happy Sunday. Solus, I heard a theory that Mars is similar to the Moon in that it has its own different orbit. Yeah, curious about that too. Does Mars have a different orbit than the other planets? Does it orbit in a different way? One of the planets rotate in a different way, but that's Venus. Venus rotates opposite. Uranus rotates on its side, which is very weird. Perfect for Uranus. But curious about Mars. Mars is very independent, always very independent. So naturally it's going to have very independent qualities. The Art of Healing After Loss. Great for you to join us. Thank you. What about node switching? Is that a thing happening now? I keep hearing conversations about this. Node switching? No, I don't know. I don't follow the mainstream stuff too much, but thank you for bringing that to my attention. We wouldn't have a node switch because the nodes are simply where the sun and moon cross each other, where their paths cross each other. I'm assuming you mean lunar nodes, which is usually what we mean by nodes. But the lunar nodes are just where the sun and moon paths cross each other. So you've got the ecliptic, that's the path of the sun, which is pretty much, for the most part, the path of all the planets. And then the moon having a very different orbital path, which slightly tilted to the ecliptic, is either going to run from bottom to the top of the ecliptic or from top to bottom of the ecliptic when it crosses. And so from bottom to top, that's the north node, and from top to bottom, that's the south node. So I don't know how these would switch. It would take, I don't even know. It would take the moon completely changing direction. So probably mainstream stuff that might be there for, let's say, entertainment purposes. M-Love, random question. How do I know when a Chiron return is over? Mine started in 2017 in Pisces. Is it over when Chiron goes into Aries? Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the actual return for Chiron shouldn't last more than 2 years. But if you mean conjunction as in it's in the same sign, and if you mean the sidereal, but you must be talking about, oh no, you are talking about sidereal, yeah. So when did Chiron go into Pisces? Yeah, so if you're talking about the same sign, as in when you say conjunction, yeah, Chiron did enter. Okay, so we're talking true sidereal, yeah. So if you mean return because they're in the same sign, then we would say that your return would end when Chiron leaves Pisces. But I think what is happening here is that in the mainstream, they will just say, since Chiron's in this sign, everyone who has Chiron in this sign is having the return. But really, it's an oversimplification because they're doing it to a mass audience, and so they're not going to know exactly where your Chiron is. I would say your Chiron return ended in by 2019 tops. Okay, but if you want to know how long Chiron will be in Pisces, which will be, you know, in a way the same energy, even though it has far moved past your Chiron natally, Chiron will be in Pisces until 2029. Okay, so 2029, Chiron will leave Pisces there. And so for all of us, this is a great time for healing regarding the Piscean energies, the mental health, spiritual health, more peace in life, more receptivity. This has been the collective healing since 2017. Violence is life. I do find that, and thanks for the free chart. In classic astrology, I have Sun in Cancer, but in true sidereal, it's in Gemini, and rising is classical Pisces. Awesome. Solace, I'm feeling an insane amount of forward action on projects I've had over the years. It's crazy. At the same time, I'm injured by overdoing an injury, so I have to limit my actions. Well, and you're the one with Mars retrograde, right? Sorry, I lost track of. Who was it that had Mars retrograde? Oh no, that wasn't you. Right, well that's interesting. So you might have some elements of your chart that are involving that forward movement, but that's exactly how I feel. I feel like I've got tons of energy, and but at the same time, it's like I start pushing forward and I don't know, get sick, or I start pushing forward and then I need to, need to rest or take a step back. So maybe that's the nature of the Mars retrograde. I think we would all have different levels of that drive based on our own unique charts. But I would say we should all, feel that sense of, when overdoing it, needing to step back or limit actions, like you said, during this time. So yeah, thanks for sharing, Solace. Nina asks, if one is born with a planet retrograde, Mars in particular, Does that mean that the individual feels more stuck during all the time the planet is not retrograde? In a way, yes. In a way, yes. But stuck, maybe not, more like reflective, right? Because we would say that the person with the Mars retrograde is naturally going to be rethinking who they are and what they want as a normal energy. So when Mars is direct in the sky, the person's normal energy is coming up. The person's normal Mars energy, right, which is a little bit more apprehensive or reflective or a little not as sure, not as conscious of the Mars side, the drives, the self, right? So then, yeah, in a way that's true. In a way that's very true. Like everything opposite, yes. Violence is life, solace, I understand you. JW made it. Hi everyone. Have the lunar nodes been mentioned? Just briefly talking about the swapped nodes, but that's about all. All right, everyone, so we're going to be wrapping up here, coming to our time. Just going to go through the final questions, and then we'll go ahead and close this out. Aquarius Sky Clock, the outer planets Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn do orbit different to Earth, Venus, and Mercury. Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn do orbit differently. I have to see how they orbit differently. I'll have to check that out. Always interesting feedback. Thank you, Aquarius Sky Clock. JW, okay, thank you. All right. Gift wrapped, great to see you. Almost missed it. Well, glad you joined us. Have not been well. Whenever planets pass through my north node, I get very weak, yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you do feel a little more energized, a little more energy there. That is weakened with those. But happy you joined us. Gift wrapped. The hippie sage, if you have a planet or node in retrograde in your natal chart, it would be opposite the energy others retrogrades would feel. Athen, yeah, so that's right. That's what I said. Now the nodes being retrograde is actually the normal movement for the nodes. And I don't really read the retrogrades of the nodes. If they are retrograde, that's actually the normal movement. But I don't read the difference between a retrograde and a direct. And the reason is that I use what's called true nodes, which is the true position of the nodes, which means that they're constantly oscillating like this in the chart, in the sky. They're oscillating very quickly like this. And so they're constantly going retrograde, direct. And I haven't seen any real correlation between whether they're what it means for the person's life path, if they're retrograde or direct. I'm sure there's something there, but just wanted to mention that if they're retrograde, that is actually the normal movement. Highway Runner, great for you to join us. M-Love, thanks. So in general, at 50, when Chiron returns to natal Chiron, we experience the return process for a few years. Yeah, like 2 years tops. And again, it depends on the individual chart because it could just be 1 year. We would consider that when the exact conjunctions occur. And with Chiron, you can either have 3 or 5, basically. So the reason it's odd numbers is because of the retrograde. So if your Chiron return only contacts 3 times, meaning transiting Chiron only contacts natal Chiron 3 times, it's going to be within 1 year. It's very common to have 5 contacts though, and which would mean it's 2 years. So I'm saying at max 2 years, but it could be even 1 year for some individuals, and you'd have to look at the individual chart for that. Yeah, I'm asking because it takes much longer, right, to go through certain signs. And so that's why when we say return, we're really talking about, regardless of the sign, when are these planets actually conjoining? When are they actually contacting? Literally. But if you read the conjunction, like you said, for the whole sign, as in Chiron's going to be there for another 4 years, then that would depend on the size of the constellation, absolutely, when you're using the true sidereal signs. Yeah. All right, everyone, so we're going to wrap up here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again for all of your support. I hope this gave a different perspective with the weekly energy, and it's great to hear a lot of your experiences as well with the weekly energy. and great to see you all. So thank you again, and I'll see you all next week for the next live stream. Have a good one. Bye-bye.